Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to talk about a sector that in the last few years has emerged as one of the thriving sectors with a lot of promise and potential. We're talking about Global Capability Centers, or GCCs as they've come to be known. Last count, I think, Karan, how many do we have? How many GCCs in India? About 2,000 odd is what is rumored to be the latest number.
Yeah, I think it's around that, and it's only growing and
and
getting
it's
bigger.
and it's only growing. And here's why I said it's being seen with a lot of promise and potential, because every multinational corporation is looking at India as a talent hub, as an incubation hub, as an innovation hub, hiring here in India to innovate for the world. That's really the GCC story and how it's playing out so far. In fact, if you take a look at what the finance minister said in the budget speech and what various other state governments are also doing, there are GCC policies, GCC frameworks in place to try and draw in investments into this sector. So we've got a panel here to talk to us about their experience with GCCs, but more importantly, why they believe that this is going to be India's big bet for the future. Karan, let's start with that. Why do you continue to feel so confident about the GCC story picking up pace and accelerating in India?
Thank you, Shireen, and thank you for having us here. I think in the last few years, the GCCs have driven almost 40% of the Indian commercial market, and even within flex spaces, we're seeing a huge adoption from some of these companies. And I think it really starts still with the talent that India has moved up the value chain to becoming extremely high quality, highly productive, technologically enabled workforce. That is something that companies from all over the world still struggle to hire in their geographies and in their countries at the scale at which they need. And today, I think with all of this, digital transformation, even the thing that is now talked about so much, which is AI and AI adoption, I think a lot of that R&D, the actual build of it, everything, it continues to happen here in India through the talent that India has. And so I think that's going to continue for a long period of time, and still going to be quite relevant. So that gives me a lot of confidence.
Put numbers to it. How much of a build out have you seen in cities like Bangalore in the last 12 months?
I mean, half of that is sitting on this panel here today between Deloitte and HCL. They can tell you a lot more, but I would say, it's almost all of the sort of like demand we're seeing in terms of office space today is transforming in that way. There's no longer any back office. Even IT services, as it was known, is not predominantly what is happening along in the four walls of any office today. It is very much innovation. It is R&D. And it is front-end, really high-quality build-out of products that's happening in India.
Okay, so lots happening in the GCC space, which bodes well for Karan, since he's passing on the real estate for these ambitions. But Kiran, let's address that issue with you. Now, give me an example of what you're seeing at HCL Tech at this point in time, and how do you view the GCC story in the long term? We talked a lot about the AI advantage and the AI opportunity, but couldn't potentially AI also act as a constraint for people to be hiring more here in markets like India?
Yeah, thanks Shireen, and thanks to News18 Network for having me here in this panel. I'd like to go a little step back before I comment on the future of the GCCs. GCC as a concept is not very new to India. So early 2000s.
We're just calling them GCCs now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So they are called India captives, and in early 2000s and after 2010 onwards, they are also called as global in-house centers, and then global technology centers and engineering centers. Now it is widely known as GCCs, but however the concept of a multinational company having their own subsidiary here and then delivering certain set of services has been actually 2 decades in this country, right? The only thing that is actually changed is the focus and the mandate of the GCCs. The early days, it was more of a cost focused and then delivering operations faster, cheaper and better with a standardized quality. And over a period of time, that service excellence and the delivery excellence has transformed to owning certain functions, projects, and then products, co-owning with the headquarters. The mandate has changed from just an instruction-led delivery to owning of the outcomes as well
So
over a
we've
period of
moved up
time.
the value chain.
Yeah, of course, they're moving up the value chain. So that's there are wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3. Wave 3 is the one where actually, so they started on an innovation journey, and now we are calling it as a wave 4, where a transformation angle also came into picture, and AI is the one which is accelerating this transformation. So AI adoption as it gains in the organizations, of course, I think as you said that like there is an opportunity if it is managed well, right? So majority of the AI, some statistics if I were to say 65% of the GCCs are currently would have experimented on AI, rolled out a pilot, but I think majority of these at this point of time not moved beyond pilots, right? And 5 to 6% of the GCCs successfully seen outcomes also after the pilots, and then they were able to scale it up. But there are actually a structured approach that is possible.
Yeah.
As HCL, I think, so we are advocating a structured approach, and we do have ways and means how we can move these GCCs, help them scale up their AI adoption as they move along.
You know, Arvind, I think Kiran made an important point that the GCC story is not new in India. Global delivery centers, R&D centers, call them what you like. But to his point that we're now in the fourth wave of the GCC evolution. We've gone from the cost optimization phase to now the innovation and accelerated innovation and IP phase. What does that mean for India specifically? And what will it also mean in an AI era, in an AI-driven era?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Shirin. I think, as Kiran said, we are at the fourth wave or stage of this entire journey, where it's all about focus on very core and niche skills, be it AI engineers, cyber specialists, data engineers, as well as cloud native architects. So there's a lot of rush for this niche talent. So what most of these capability centers are doing now is it's no longer a volume game. It's a very niche skill game. And when you look at it that way, the talent which is available, you can say it's a short supply, and there is global competition for this kind of talent. So a couple of things to look at for companies which are setting up capability centers. I think the leadership depth which they bring in becomes very important, because you have to look at the global capability centers as like a standalone business in the country. You need a leader to hire, run it with a business focus. As well as the second most important aspect will be how do you retain talent in these capability centers, right? I think couple of important elements around that is, one is of course, which is a given in any organization, how are you making them do meaningful work? The second most important is a career path. Are you able to show them a career path in the global organization?
Yeah.
And the most important, according to me, is culture. You have to embed the culture which is there as a global organization. This organization shouldn't be looked at like a cost center.
Yeah.
I think all of this becomes very important as you build your capability center.
And where are we on that front, where we actually see a career path for the India office leading into the global organization as well?
I think it's work in progress. I think from latest stats, it's in about 1,500 global roles. It's expected to go up to 6,500. But if I can just give you a couple of examples from the parks where customers are there in Bangalore. One large retail company, literally every single function, what happens, it's an American-based company, is done out of the park in Bangalore, except what happens at the physical store. It's a very evolved capability center where advanced AI is used for doing merchandise assortment, right? So that's the evolved phase, and there'll be more and more global roles being setting out of India.
Setting up here in India. Rohan, let me address that issue with you. If we are now in wave 4 and looking at wave 5, what does the road ahead look like? What are the lessons that we need to take into consideration on the back of the last 4 waves?
So I think so the first wave, second wave, third wave are still in progress, while the fourth wave is coming up and the fifth wave is coming up. And you were looking for numbers. We are about 2,000 GCCs today.
Yeah.
We anticipate that there will be 5,000 companies in the next 4 years setting up GCCs over here. and AI being an accelerant rather than something that causes any disruption. And I see the India market access, which is basically a GCC which is running services over here, looks at India as a market, looks at India to get its supply chain, looks at India to create its logistics hub, manufacturing hub, and that trend is, I think, going to go up. But what does the GCC do further?
Yeah.
Is going to be a lot of product development. So, for example, the logistics cost of a truck, for example, per ton mile is 7 cents, but an autonomous electric vehicle is 3 cents. So we're going to have a lot of companies build autonomous electric vehicles and components in India, and not just
But not for India.
It will be for India for
not
sure.
Not anytime soon for India.
It will be for sure, because what we're hearing a lot from some of these companies is that they want to build products here, test it out in the Indian market, and if anything sells in the Indian market...
If you can build an autonomous vehicle for India, you have won the world. You can basically use that autonomous vehicle anywhere in the world if you can build an autonomous vehicle for India's roads.
But there are lots of other things, right? Look, if you look at all the things that we are experiencing from a consumption standpoint, whether a business or a consumer, my shoes are not intelligent. There's somebody that's going to come and put a chip over there, make it digital, get data out of it, analyze it, and give me insights like, for example, this ring does.
Yeah.
In manufacturing facilities, we're working with one company that has got 250 factories across the world. 60 of them have any kind of data, and in each, about 8 lines, production lines, only one line has got real digital factory. So that part, which is, how do I capture data across things that are not intelligent, analog, for instance, now, build products on top of it, that's going to be the future in GCC. And that will require very different skills. It will require design skills, customer skills. You'll need to know what customers experience. You'll need to know the technologies. You'll need to know different technologies, for example, embedded technologies and things like that, and how all of this comes together.
What is your ring telling you? How's your heart rate doing currently?
I think it's normal.
It's normal. But, Karan, to answer what we just heard there from Rohan, if we're talking about going from 2,000 GCCs currently to 5,000 in the next few years, what does that mean? And we are going to have to start to look beyond the key metros where currently the GCCs are operating in. Now, to create that kind of environment, to create that kind of ecosystem, what will it take? Are you looking at that opportunity?
100%. I think that is the opportunity that we're so excited about. Firstly, that India still has such a long way to go, not just, I think, from a GCC front, but generally in terms of where enterprises and businesses and the amount of entrepreneurship that needs to happen. But GCCs in specific, I think, some of them are already trying to test out other markets, tier 2 markets, and really chasing the talent again. But I think it's still a long way to go. The kind of social infrastructure, the infrastructure built within the metros itself need to, get to a point where it becomes like these mega cities that you would see anywhere else in the world, right? I think today, even a city like Bangalore is still so far away from even a second-tier city in China in terms of how it needs to develop. So I think the metro story is still strong for a considerable amount of time, and you'll still see predominantly most of these GCCs happening within the top-tier metros itself. We have cities like Hyderabad and Pune that are just kicking off, even Chennai for that matter. So I think there's a lot of concentration left. And a lot of this talent is, between the age of, let's say, 20 to 27, 28. So they also want to just be in environments that are exciting to live in.
Yes.
They want to go out. They want to go out to eat at restaurants. So it's not just about work and, where I go to work. It's everything that basically
to Arvind's
comes
point, you have to think about culture, and you've got to think about ecosystem, not just within the organization, but outside of the organization as well, to ensure that this is a story that's supported. But Kiran, let's talk about some of the regulatory accelerants. H-1B visas and what the Trump administration has now decided to do by enhancing the visa fee, making it harder for people to get H-1B visas. Do you believe that that is actually going to provide an impetus to the GCC story, because people are going to try and do much more in India as opposed to sending people out?
A couple of things, and before that, I just want to comment on the question which you had asked for the tier 2 story. Tier 2 story is not very conducive enough for every GCC use case, but certain GCC use cases it would work where there is a limited mandate and a hub and spoke model is something that which we are experimenting. We're creating certain skill clusters in the tier 2 cities and then we're moving the work there to be able to. So coming back to the question, so in terms of the overall geopolitical situation, H1B visa situation, if you look at after 2024, the total number of GCCs that are set up in the country, close to 60% of them are the mid-market GCCs. These are the enterprise revenue anywhere between $2 billion to $5 billion. These, you can also call them as G2000 next. So today in India, there are about 35% of the G2000s have a GCC, 65% is additional opportunity. But an equal amount of opportunity is coming from the G2K next. So majority of them actually felt this heat of uncertainty on the visa.
Yeah.
Unable to hire the number of people, skill at scale is not available in those markets. Added to that, like these protectionism, some of the nationalism, some of these issues actually accelerated the GCC proliferation into India. And then we will see that like that momentum is definitely going to continue. Irrespective of the numbers at this point of time, India has got about 45% of the global GCCs at this point of time. We see that like that momentum is going to continue every quarter from now till 2030. Around 50 to 60 new GCCs are going to set up. And the existing GCCs are also going to expand. That is called the unit expansion. So that involves even tier 2 as well.
Okay, so 45% of India's GCC capacity currently resides in India, and you're expecting every quarter 50 or 60 GCCs to be added on till 2030. So that's a significant expansion that we're talking about. But you know, I want to address this issue with both Arvind and Rohan. Sridhar Vembu believes that, look, India is benefiting from the GCC story, but India must benefit more from the GCC story. If you're actually creating IP in India, then pay tax on IP creation in India as well. Arvind and Rohan, you know, your thoughts on that?
Any tax to India which benefits all of us is definitely better. That's my quick comment on that. It's a little bit more complicated to comment how that whole IP benefits, etc. gets computed. But overall, big picture, Shirin, I think I'll go back to the previous point which you mentioned. One of the, you know, besides talent, the cost benefit, the overall infra development, one of the key impetus for the growth in GCC has been the policy benefits given to this sector, right? Be it at the state level or at the center level. This is one sector where every state is actually competing with each other, telling we are better than the other, which is working better. There is actually capital subsidies given, operational subsidies given. At a center level, the recent safe harbor, you know, the 15.5% which was announced in the recent budget, again, very great for the sector. So the better the policy, the stabler the policy, I think it will be better for this sector. That's my view.
No, absolutely. Yes, Ron, go ahead.
No, I think, you know, one needs to remember how the GCC industry grew. And the GCC industry grew in Bangalore and Hyderabad because, first of all, the government had manufacturing facilities, right? HAL, DRDO, BEL and all that, which attracted talent there. And that talent moved into what in those days were startups, which was TCS and Infosys. And that migration of people from here to US and other countries and then them coming back gave them the confidence to set up centers over here. I think the big benefit that's going to happen, and the government started steps in this particular budget, the big benefit that's going to happen is there's going to be reverse migration of talent from GCCs who have exposure in delivering transformations across the world into domestic manufacturing companies, and then from domestic manufacturing companies, people with specialist talent. Like, for example, in the morning there was conversation about semiconductor facilities getting manufactured. The design of that is going to come. Those talent is going to come back into GCCs of global corporations, and then the talent is going to migrate back. And I think with the AI advent, see, there is a fundamental rewiring that is required of businesses that have legacy operations. What does this rewiring mean? You need to look at business processes, you need to look at the systems, and you'll find in most of the companies there's no documentation. So there has to be AI coming and getting that right documentation and then applying the industry standards.
Yeah.
Where do those industry standards come from? From our experience in domestic business or from global operations? And then finding out what you need to build, the forward deployed engineering concept of the future from an AI standpoint, which means there's a tremendous amount of work involved for legacy companies that they can't do over there because there's a lot of work and they have to come to India where the workers are. And
so the headroom for growth is immense. So let me end by asking each one of you, and I'll pick up on the fifth wave that Kiran alluded to. Kiran, I'll start by asking you, what will be the most defining attribute of the fifth wave of the Global Capability Center story in India?
If I were to comment, fifth wave is something 2030 and beyond.
Okay.
So if that is going to be, in 2030, when you look at actually majority of the GCCs or including the service providers will be leveraging an AI native approach. So majority of the processes would have been redefined with AI in mind. So right now it is at a process, function, workflow, a task. Probably task level automation is which is happening. Probably by the time I think majority of the business processes also would be AI leveraged. And then we will see that like the impact of that, whether in terms of the higher productivity and then lower leverage of human beings is also probably could be true to some extent.
Yes, which is going to be a challenge for demographic advantage that we keep talking about. Arvind, what will be the defining factor of the fifth wave?
Just probably stretching it a bit, right? One is, of course, complete product ownership. Generating revenues on its own, potentially having its own IPO, the Indian entity. Just stretching my luck.
Well, that's something to look forward to. GCC IPOing in the Indian stock markets, that's certainly going to be something to look forward to. Rohan?
I think the defining thing in the next wave is going to be that massive disruptive innovation which every consumer in the world is going to be using is going to be built right here. I think that's going to be, and for that you need courage. I was very impressed with that one kid in the US who built a nuclear reactor in his basement, right? I want a lot more of our kids building and imagining that they can build a nuclear reactor in their basement, or innovation that is absolutely disruptive that people will use across the world.
I don't know if the new Shanti bill is going to work that into the rules. The rules are yet to be notified whether you can build nuclear reactors in your basement or not, but that's certainly food for thought. Karan, I'll give you the final word, the defining factor for GCCs by 2030.
Look, I think that we're still at the very surface of how many companies have even, come to India and started adopting or setting up GCCs. Even 5,000 to me in a global world seems super low. So I think the next wave is actually this mid to nano GCCs, which are small and mid-sized businesses in the world that are going to continue to hire in India and actually build a lot of this disruptive tech, and create the next global giants. So I would say the next wave is still smaller businesses and nano GCCs that are going to enter and grow in India.
Nano GCCs, perhaps an IPO of a GCC in India, and products built in GCCs in India, not just for India, but truly for the world. Rohan, Arvind, Kiran and Karan, many, many thanks for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the GCC story and what it means for the growth of the Indian economy.